Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Liana Lianov, the president and founder of the Global Positive Health Institute, and welcome to this podcast series by the Global Positive Health Institute, where we talk about all things related to positive psychology, health and well-being, and particularly for our healthcare professional audience. And so today I'm delighted to have with us Erika Jackson, who is the Chief Coaching Officer at Wellcoaches and the co-author of the Coaching Psychology Manual, and also an advisor on our council for the Global Positive Health Institute. So welcome, Erika.
Oh, my pleasure. Always a delight to be in your presence, Liana.
Oh, wonderful to have you. And let's just dive right in. I'd love to hear what grabbed your attention to positive psychology and healthy lifestyles and all these wonderful things for our well-being.
Well, my top strengths from the values and action assessment are gratitude and curiosity. So I have a natural tendency to appreciate what is and then to celebrate and savor that. And also to be looking out for those things because of my sense of curiosity. I was thinking about, a time that I was unloading a grocery cart in the pouring down, freezing rain. It was midnight because I was a young mom at the time. It was the only time I could go. And I could have at the time, kind of been cursing under my breath that it was so late and it was miserable outside. But it's more natural to me to be thankful for those things. So it's, I remember I was instead talking to myself about how grateful I was to have the legs to be walking and the money to buy the groceries and curious about the other people, the camaraderie about the people who were out in the parking lot with me. And so, it brings me joy to use those muscles.
It's all about reframing and what we pay attention to, and that's one of the biggest lessons that positive psychology has to teach us. So thanks for that. And so this example is one way that you've applied this in your life. What are some of your favorite strategies for ongoing for not only for boosting your happiness and emotional well-being, but your physical well-being as well?
Yeah, sure. And do you want me to talk about my personal life?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then we can do professionally.
Okay,
Both.
yeah. I guess it makes sense to start with my personal life, as like that obviously has to be on solid ground before I can really bring myself to be authentic and bring positivity into my professional life. So well, physically for me, it's walking, and it's particularly being out in nature. I happen to live in the country on a dead end road. I feel like I have my own park here where I'm not navigating many cars or people. And so I guess going back to my strengths of curiosity and gratitude, walking and being attentive to all that's around me. I love to take pictures of flowers on my walks. I love to cloud gaze. I anytime it's raining and there's the least bit of sun, I run to the windows to watch for rainbows and see if I can capture pictures of those. I love to take pictures of snow crystals. So for me, it's nature and being out in it. So that's my favorite physical activity. I go to the gym, but that's not my favorite. um, you know, uh, just thinking about the other facets of positivity, and well-being mentally, I think it's just really important to uh, be aware of when you need help. And after 2020, I experienced some clinical depression that I hadn't had symptoms of for a decade prior to that. And I I didn't wait. I didn't hesitate to ask for the medical help that I needed, and to let those around me know that I was suffering. And so, because that speaks to the importance of having healthy relationships, I find it helps me be more well when I let people in, when I let them know what's going on with me, not with any expectation they can fix it, but just to know what may be bubbling underneath the surface. And then in terms of emotional well-being, I have a pretty intense job that could be 7 days a week, and sometimes is 14 hours a day. Uh, and I love what I do, but there are times when I must give myself permission to get up from this space. You're looking at me in the space I live in, basically. I have to get up and walk away and pet a dog and have a meal with my husband, or take a walk and find some flowers. So that's those are some of my strategies personally.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. And I'd love to especially highlight when you found yourself troubled, that you really look to others and ask for that support. And so social connection, social support is probably the most important element and pillar of this area of positive psychology and health and well-being in general. So I wanted to highlight that for our listeners. And then time and again in what you've been sharing, you talk about movement, of course, is a natural one that we all know about, but then being around animals, petting your dog, being out in nature. And nature is not an official element of positive psychology, but I always talk about it when I talk about, well, what promotes well-being. And pretty soon, I think we're going to find a way to include it as an important pillar there. So
I
thanks
think
for
so
sharing
too.
that.
I'm seeing a lot more conversation about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're a leader in the coaching community. So tell us then how this is being used in coaching and professionally. And so many of our listeners are either coaches themselves or do some kind of counseling and coaching, and behavior change is an important element of what they're doing with clients and patients. So this is important for us to know about how to best leverage this.
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge that I think I have the best career in the world. And I'm really fortunate that the entire premise of coaching is, well, the entire premise of my role is to prepare coaches to support their clients or patients in identifying their own unique path to thriving. So it's not prescriptive. And I think that's really important, that there isn't one best path. So what drives somebody to feel a sense of well-being physically or mentally or emotionally or socially can have millions of iterations, right? And the foundation of coaching is to begin with what there is to celebrate. So when I'm working with clients or teaching my coaches to do that, we look first to strengths and successes and joys. And that then provides us clients with the internal resources they need to address what's really hard. A little bit hard or really, really hard. So that's not to say we ignore the challenges. We certainly don't, but we begin conversations with something positive.
The driver for anything that moves us forward really is built around positive emotions. And that's something that I learned from Margaret Moore, one of the leaders, of course, in Wellcoaches, the leader of Wellcoaches, that has really stuck with me, that positive emotion absolutely is the starting place. And that's what you're bringing out that's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and what are some practical tips or advice that you have for our listeners in implementing this as they're working directly with a client or patient?
Yeah. Well, for themselves or for a patient, I would suggest just picking one area of the PERMA model. And if that's new to you, maybe this is your first time listening, that's a positive emotion and engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Pick one area and the one thing that feels compelling, not something you feel like you have to do or should do, but you want to do, and experiment with that. And I want to emphasize the word experiment because that's the perspective to take, which will allow you to give yourself grace and forgiveness when you're trying on new behaviors. And then for clinicians, I would just encourage you to shift your starting point with patients in every conversation to ask first about just one good thing. One thing that made that person smile or brings them joy or made them laugh. That one good thing can open so many doors.
It's a baby step, small step,
Yeah.
very doable. It seems that most people, no matter what their circumstance, no matter how dire, probably if they sit back can find one good thing that's going on. And if it's not outside themselves, it might be inside themselves. They can remind themselves of a character strength that they can bring to the table to move them forward and energize them. And that's one thing I always like to remind people about.
Yeah, yeah, and it could even be about someone else.
Yeah.
Boy, I loved hearing my son laugh today, or I loved the way I heard my husband talk to my daughter. So yeah, I think we can all identify one good thing.
So we're well aligned in moving self-care and healthcare forward to fully take advantage and leverage this field of healthy lifestyles, positive psychology, positive emotions. So in an ideal future, when we've fully accomplished this, this big task of helping ourselves and our colleagues take advantage of these fields, what would that look like? What's that
Mhm.
ultimate vision?
Yeah. Well, the word that comes up for me is simplicity. I think that the gift of the pandemic was that the world stopped spinning and we were stuck in place to face ourselves and our environment. And for a lot of people that was painful, and it caused us to have to take a hard look at the ways that we'd been running and overdoing it and escaping from things instead of moving toward compelling, healthy things. Like during that time, I let go of some things that I realized weren't serving me. Like I was running a community theater instead of being on stage, and so I left that, and then that allowed me to get engaged in something that served my own larger mission, which was doing some design work for an organization called Braver Angels. So I think again, it's simplicity, clearing out space in our lives so that we can take time to savor what is and dream about what could be.
Positive visioning. Love it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And what are some of your favorite resources where if people want to learn more about this? What
Hmm.
are the go-tos?
Well, besides GPHI, of course.
Of course.
I love the work of Greater Good Berkeley and their magazine. Just they always have really excellent resources. There's also an organization called Wisdom Works. And Renee Moorfield there has an assessment on thriving in the workplace, but also just publishes a lot of really thoughtful articles that are chock full of research and resources. And then I personally think leaving time in your life for great music and movies that are full of joy. And more specifically, movies that are full of joy that are from outside your own culture and race and norms that expand your connection to the larger universe, to expand your understanding of what it means to be human. That ties back to self-compassion, of course, Kristen Neff's work, because I believe that will help us acknowledge our common sense of humanity.
Thank you for that. So we keep these podcasts short. So as we're closing out, what are some of your parting words? What's the single most important message, takeaway, thoughts that you would like to leave our listeners?
Well, I want to acknowledge that there also can be a lot of danger in this work. To put on rose-colored glasses and ignore the reality of someone else's lived experience. Those who have experienced discrimination or a lack of access to resources or like transportation and food and social support. And so, just like traditional health behaviors, I just want to be sure that practitioners are also really aware that we can't force positive emotions or prescribe positivity generating behaviors and ignore those things, that we have to walk alongside both.
Yes, we have to be all encompassing, all embracing. And absolutely. Thank you for that. Anything else to share before we close?
No, that really was the message that I wanted to be sure I said, in addition to saying that positivity and positive psychology is so important and not only brings life-changing experiences to your clients and patients, but to yourself. So practice before you practice on.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Erika Jackson, for joining this GPHI podcast. And thank you to our listeners. And I look forward to seeing you all on another one of these podcast sessions of the Global Positive Health Institute. In the meantime, be happy, healthy, and safe. Take care, everybody. Till next time. Bye-bye.